Welcome to the Millennial Rant, a podcast about whatever's bothering me today. With topics ranging from politics to pop culture, there's a rant to cover everyone. For more Millennial Rant content, you can join me on the web at millennialrant.com. For those of you who clicked on this video because of the clickbait title before reading the summary, I'm not actually moving to Scotland. Yet. So, am I actually going to move to Scotland? Maybe, I hope so. And the reason why I'll get into this is because, I mentioned in previous videos that I spent a good portion of the summer in the UK and Ireland, and I've always thought about going over to Ireland specifically and to Scotland peripherally, because my mom is madly obsessed with Ireland, like to the point where I think that, I don't know if she would move there, but only because she bleeds red, white, and blue. So, but she definitely wants to go, and she's definitely planning to go, and so, like a good daughter, I went without her. I went with a school trip. We went to Dublin and Belfast and Galway, and it was amazing. I didn't really like Dublin. It was very cramped and dirty, and it was loud, and the people weren't super nice. I mean, they weren't really mean. It's like, I don't know, like if you go to New York, there's just this general vibe of don't talk to me, and it kind of came off that way. It was very, very city-minded type of city, which makes sense because it's a city. But I also kind of had this idea that everybody in Ireland was like super nice and open, and they were very receptive, and I mean, for the most part. I guess that's movies, tainting my understanding of the culture and the reality over there. But thinking about it, most of those movies that I'm thinking of take place in the country, so maybe that's it too. Although I didn't feel that way so much in Belfast or in Galway, but that's okay. I wanted to go to Ireland because my mom's always wanted to go to Ireland. I've heard about Ireland my whole life and how we have family history from there, and how, it's a part of who I am as how I've developed and part of my family history. And it's important to know your roots. And so went to Ireland, enjoyed it. There were problems, with the way that the trip was done. But for the most part, it was a really good trip, and I'm really glad I went. Then I had another school trip that was in Oxford. It was a revenge trip. I said this before, for the trip that I missed last year because I got sick. And so I didn't want to fly back home because that's ridiculous. Why would I do that? And then go back out to Oxford. So I had about 4 days in between the Ireland trip and the Oxford trip that I needed to fill in some capacity. And I thought, well, I could go to Oxford early, or maybe I could go to London, or maybe I could stay in Ireland. And I was like, no, I'm going to go to Scotland. I have 2 full days that I would be able to spend. So I had a travel day, 2 full days, and then another travel day. And so I did. I flew on this tiny little plane. It was a hopper from Ireland to Scotland. As an aside, nobody checked my passport when I got to Scotland. Still not entirely sure I was in the country legally, but when I went to talk to one of the police officers at the airport and let him know that nobody checked my passport, I didn't know if there was something I needed to do, somebody I needed to talk to. Was I supposed to go to customs? I had no idea. And he said, and I quote, what's the matter? Just run for it. And I was like, okay. So I went off. So I didn't know what I was going to do when I was in Scotland. I didn't really think ahead that far. I was mostly focused on Ireland and on Oxford because they were related to school, and I had assignments and things that were required for these. So I didn't really think too much about what I would do in Scotland, which admittedly was not brilliant. I ended up flying into Glasgow because it was cheaper to get a hotel in Glasgow than it was to get a hotel in Edinburgh. And I wanted to go to Edinburgh because pretty much all I knew about Scotland was Gretna Green and Edinburgh, right? If you've read any of Jane Austen's stuff, that's really all is ever mentioned. I've read other Regency novels, and really the only mentions that they make of Scotland are Gretna Green and Edinburgh. I'd never heard of Glasgow. I didn't know what was there. I didn't know what to expect. And again, like I said, I didn't really look into it. But the hotel that I stayed at had this huge display rack of, places to go and things to see and things to do. So I grabbed basically one of everything, and I took them up to my room, and I sat down my first night there. So again, I flew in, I had a travel day. So my first night, I went through all of the different things that were available, and I found a tour company that does minibuses, intimate, no more than 16 people tours. And one of them was going to Loch Ness. Well, that's another thing I knew about Scotland, was that there's a monster in Loch Ness. So I was like, okay, I'll go to Loch Ness. So I looked at all of the different ones that went to Loch Ness, all of the different places that they hit along the way. And I picked one, and I had to get up ridiculously early to get to the bus station. But I went. Lost my water bottle on the way, which was really sad. But I made it. Oh my gosh. It was amazing. The countryside was gorgeous. Just big, green, verdant hills. They call them mountains, but they've been worn down so much that they're hills. And it was so just vibrant and pulsing and alive, and it felt ancient. It just felt ancient everywhere we went. Like this was a place that had deep, deep, deep history. And of course I know that it is. Scotland and that area is very, very, very old with, civilization and human inhabitants and that sort of thing. So it definitely has history. It has a range of history, but you could feel it. And it was misty basically the whole time we were there. It was in the upper 50s, low 60s for basically the entire time. And we went pretty far, it was an 8-hour day, I think. And it was a 12-hour day. And we made every second count. But it was just phenomenal. We went all the way up to the lower highlands where Loch Ness is. And my tour guide was so well informed about the history and the culture of the area. He told us about different clans and the wars that they had. By the way, if your last name is Campbell, you may want to think twice before visiting your ancestral homeland in Scotland, because there are still bad blood with the Campbells. So be careful if you decide to follow that family history line up there. But it was just, I don't even know how to explain it. And I think the thing that really struck me the most was our first stop outside of Glasgow was Loch Lomond. And I'd heard of Loch Lomond, but only because my nieces were super into the Wiggles, and the new Wiggles do the Loch Lomond song. And so I'd heard of it. I'd heard the song. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know the history. I didn't even really know the lyrics. I just heard it. And so we're going up to Loch Lomond, and my tour guide told us the legend of Loch Lomond and the history behind the song. Nobody really knows when it was written or when it was put to music or anything like that. But it's a huge part of Scottish national culture and history. And the story behind this song is it takes place during the Jacobean rebellions, and two brothers were captured by the English I believe on English soil, so outside of Scotland. And when their captors found out that they were brothers, they were given a choice that they had to make, where one brother could be set free, the other brother had to stay behind and he would be hanged. And they had to agree between the two of them who was going to stay and who was going to go. So the lyrics for the chorus of the song are, "You take the high road and I'll take the low, and I'll be in Scotland before you." And so what that is talking about is legends related to Celtic mythology, where the high road is the road to life and the low road is the road through death. And they believed that if a Scotsman died outside of Scotland, that their souls returned to Scotland after death. So the older brother tells the younger brother, "You take the high road, the life road, and I'll take the low road, the death road, and I'll be in Scotland before you, because my spirit will be in Scotland before you physically cross the border." And I just it was like a knife to my heart, because I thought it was like some sort of clandestine Romeo and Juliet type of thing, because the latter half of the chorus says, "And me and my true love will never meet again on the bonny, bonny shores of Loch Lomond." And so I always thought it was like some sort of Romeo and Juliet sort of thing, like these clandestine lovers are going to run off but one of them dies or something. I don't know. That was so much more meaningful and poignant and just, I don't know, devastating to me. Again, it was the first story he told us. It was the first stop that we made, and that colored the entire rest of the trip for me. I have never felt such a deep and abiding soul connection to a place before, the way I felt hearing that song and its history and connecting it with the land of Scotland. And I think the reason for this is because my family, we are technically the Fletcher clan. I think we're actually more English Welsh Fletchers, but we do have some Scotch Fletchers, and they have a castle holding up to the northwest, I think, slightly west of Glasgow. I was planning on going to see it, but it's in ruins, I think, and it was like 2 ferries and 3 buses and a 15-minute walk from where I was. It was going to be like a 3-hour trip, and I just didn't have time for that. So next time, next time I'm in Scotland, I will go see our ancestral holdings. But it was the idea of it, right? This intense love of clan and family and brotherhood and culture, and that's my family. We're very clan oriented, which is kind of a weird thing to say in America, but we are. We're very clan oriented. We're very close knit. And my brothers have that sort of bond, right? That sort of deep and unbroken connection of love and fidelity. And I mean, I have it as well, but I'm thinking of this song and I'm thinking my older brother would absolutely, for any one of his brothers, take the low road. And I mean, I would too, for any one of them. I think any one of us would be willing to take the low road for any of the others. I think the real problem would be deciding among us who got to take the high road. But it was very true to me and my family, and the way that we are, the way that we love each other, the way that we appreciate each other. And it gave me that immediate, deep love and connection and respect for Scotland. And as the place where this originated, the place where these things are still very highly regarded. And I wanted that. I wanted to feel that. I wanted to appreciate that on a deep emotional and physical, as in being there, level. So what does this mean for me in moving to Scotland? Am I just going to pack up my life and move to Scotland? No, that's ridiculous. It's too far away from my family, and like I said, we clan, and I don't know as I'd be able to handle being away from my family for that long and that far and that definitively for any indefinite period of time. But I would like to live in Scotland. So me being me, I've kind of gotten to a place in my educational journey where it's kind of basically my hobby / career. And I love going to school. I love getting an education. I love learning. And so I'm always on the lookout for things that I want to learn. And because I think this story struck me so deeply, I really am very interested in the Jacobean era in Scotland, the history and the way that it all played out. I would really love to study that, to delve into it, and to apply it to what I already know as a creative writer and also as a communicator, as a scholar of communications, I guess I should say. And so I'm planning to, at some point in my life, apply to the University of Glasgow to get a master's in Scottish history with an emphasis on the Jacobean era. So, master's degrees in the UK at least, and also in Ireland, because I've looked into a university there too, because again, that's just how I roll. I found that you can get your master's degree done in 1 year going full-time, or you can do it in 2 years going part-time. And of course, why wouldn't I go for 2 years doing it part-time so that I can spend 2 years in Scotland exploring Scotland and learning about the deep, rich history that I'm immersing myself in firsthand, I mean as much as you can when you're studying history. So yeah, at some point in my life, I will be moving to Scotland for at least 2 years to be able to study the history of this country that I have come to have a deep and abiding love and respect for. And when I'm done, I will hopefully have a novel written that is about the song The Bonny Shores of Loch Lomond. Because to my shock, nobody's done that before. And maybe it's because it's almost a cultural taboo to take that song and to put it into anything other than the format of that song. I don't know. I'm not that Scottish. I'm definitely very American. And so I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to cause any sort of, discord or offense, I guess. But at the same time, I feel like it's a story that needs to be told. And I would like to do it respectfully, and I would like to do it as truthfully as possible. Not only truthful to the history of Scotland, but also truthful to the lore and the beliefs that gave rise to the modern Scotland that we now know, which includes a lot of the fairy lore, a lot of the Celtic ideas and things like that. Scotland is a very traditionally Christian country in that it was evangelized pretty early as far as the spread of Christianity is concerned. So I also want to take that into account and other sorts of things. So I want to be respectful in my approach, but I do want to write it. And I am very much looking forward to the process. So that's it. That's my thoughts. If you have the chance to visit Scotland, I very much encourage you to do so. It's a beautiful country with beautiful people, beautiful history, beautiful culture. And I am very much looking forward to being a part of it.